All right. Who knows what a QSO party is? Okay. Tell us, Ian.
As loud as I am, they still want me to use the mic. A QSO party, at least as they're implemented in the US, is a state-run contest where the people in the state are the DX or the Foxes or the desired contact entities. Usually the goal is to work hams in all of the counties within that state. If you're outside the state, if you're inside the state, your goal is to work as many people all over everywhere as you possibly can.
Very good. And sometimes they're called, oh, thank you. Sometimes they're called the QSO party, or sometimes it could be called the contest. So maybe there's a little bit difference in the words there. Kind of like they say field day isn't a contest, even though they keep score. The Georgia QSO party, to me, is competitive, and they do keep score, but it's also a way for Georgia to show ourselves as ham operators to the rest of the world and the country. So who has participated in the GQP? Good, a bunch of you, and I presume those who haven't. Let's see a show of hands of those who haven't. That'll be easy to see. Why not?
The contesting piece of it, just not.
All right, right. And that's what we'll hear is I'm not a contester. And that's right. But if you like to be on the radio and you like to contact people, and if you'd like people to come after you, you can have a good time without being a contester. You could have a party and just get on the air for 30 minutes, 3 hours, or all weekend once you catch the bug. But the point is, you can have a lot of fun and not be a contester because, as I said in the opening remarks, it's a party. Yes, it's a contest, but really it's what you want it to be. What is the Georgia QSO Party? Well, as we said, it's sponsored by the Southeastern DX Club and the Southeast Contest Club. Two big, one's a big contest entity, one's a big DX Club, and they've been sponsoring this for many years. This will be the 63rd running. When is it? April 8th and 9th. And it's sort of a middle of the road event. Some contests will go all weekend for 48 hours. Some may be a sprint for 10 hours, more or less. This is 2 10-hour sessions on Saturday and Sunday. So it's somewhat manageable. You don't have to do all 20 hours. You could be in the Georgia QSO Party without contesting, but having a party for an hour or two if you want. And I think once you get the flavor of it, you'll want more. It's always the second weekend in April. Conflict sometimes is Easter Sunday this year, and a lot of times it does fall on Easter Sunday. You'll get the Masters as well, which diverts a lot of people to their TV sets, especially if it's a close tournament. And sometimes it's just beautiful weather. So maybe you don't want to be in the hole, but it's what you enjoy doing. And you can operate, like I said, it could be less than an hour, or you can do the full 20 if you're maniacal about it. Who does it? It's open to everyone. Everyone in all Georgia stations who compete amongst each other, and all stations outside of Georgia. There's awards and certificates for folks that compete outside of Georgia in the US, and also DX awards. So why do you do GQP? Well, it's a good way to test your station, hone up on your operating skills, and you could even say FCC Part 97.1 wants us, ham radio, to expand our reservoir of trained ops, techs, and electronic experts. What better way to do it than to actually get on the air, use your equipment, and make it function the way it should? Why? Well, what are the goals of the club? Why are we promoting it? We have a great time as a club doing this, and we have the NFARL Challenge. It's just a name we coined, and it's sort of an internal competition, if you will, between us, but not really a competition, but we get a list of names. We have a sign-up sheet over here. I hope to see some of you who haven't done it before try to get involved. And we look at each other's scores. We look for each other's call signs on the air. And we compile our scores and give out certificates within the club. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And the main goal is to have fun. Where is the Georgia QSO Party? Well, almost anywhere you want it. Most of us do it from our shack. Some of us are rovers. Does anybody not know what a rover is? A rover is a station op, usually a mobile, and they'll traverse from county to county and make contacts across the state of Georgia, giving out county points. We'll get to that soon enough. And portable was introduced the last few years because Poda and Soda guys really like to get out there, find a spot, throw up an antenna, and work portable. So that's becoming an increasing category in the contest. The Reach and NFARL, these are just some fun ones. Phil Gracher, he's on the team this year. He's got his little certificate. He was first place in Glenn County. He's down there in St. Simons roughing it. And him and his dog were a multi-op, I think. I'm not sure. There's our rover, the famous N4N rover. I think I saw Mike here, who is K5JR, although the license plate says W5JR. The club we compiled over 1 million points last year, which was a record for us. And they had about 340,000 of those points. And the reason is rovers go from county to county, and every time they change counties, they're eligible to be worked again by anybody, anywhere. So we'll get into more of that later, but that's our moneymaker right there. And then N4A was in Fannin County. You could set up just a simple radio and laptop and a tuner, and you're ready to go. So what can you operate in the GQP? SSB and CW. They do not have digital modes as of yet. And that's the determination of the sponsors. The bands are all of the traditional bands. 80, 40, and 20 have been, if you will, the money bands. I was looking at my stats last year. 99.3% of my contacts were on those three bands. 0.7% were not. So, but, you know, things are crowded, and now that propagation's starting to get better, 15 and 10 meters may become more viable. 160 and 6, yes, but you're not going to see much action there. So 10 and 15 could be in play if you're equipped for those bands and not some of the lower bands, but 40 and 20 are usually the monsters. And as this is evidence in the solar cycle, you could see 2020 was sort of the low point, and now we're on the rise, and maybe the red line was what was predicted. We might be doing better, but it could be a good time to make hay on the upper bands in the GQP. But if you really want to score points, you know, you could go to 10 and 15 and ramble about, and it might get a lot happening, but as Slick Willie Sutton was quoted, the gentleman, innovator, and bank robber from robbed banks in New York and Philadelphia in the early 1900s. When he was in prison, the legend was, a journalist asked him, why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. So if you really want to run your score, you want to be on the band that's the hottest and where it's happening. Or, you know, you may want to take it easy, look around, see what you could fish. You know, but I think I was looking at my log from 2011. I got on 15 meters. There was nobody there. I was calling CQ because I felt like I had worked everybody that could hear me on the other bands. I was there for 45 minutes and made 3 contacts, but 2 of them were from Thailand. So it shocked the heck out of me. The first guy comes on. At first I thought someone was messing with me. And then 5 minutes later, another one came on. And I guess maybe I was spotted on the Thailand bulletin board or something, but I got QSLs out of it. You know, didn't get a good run rate, but it was fun. Categories: single operator, single station, sitting in your shack, or you could have multi-op with a single transmitter. Daryl and Lori Young do this every year, our club members, spouses, and they both take turns alternating operating their station. And then you could have multi-operators with 2 transmitters at the same site, and the benefits of having 2 radios to switch back and forth with 2 operators. We used to do that during COVID. They allowed us to do 2 transmitters at different sites using the same call signs. Not anymore. So all transmitters must be at the same location for a multi-op. And then the other categories, we have rovers, single op, which you saw the truck with the antennas, and rover single op means only 1 operator. You can't have a driver, but only 1 operator. The driver can't operate. The multi-2 operator, then you have rover multi-operator, multi-single, where the driver and operator can switch back and forth. And the one that Mike does is rover multi-operator with 2 transmitters. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. And then portable operators, as we discussed earlier. And there's a rule change now for rover and portable operations. Before, on the Georgia QSO Party, unlike other QSO parties, a rover could straddle a county line. On the Oklahoma QSO Party last week, I worked a guy that was actually where 3 counties met. So by making 1 contact, I got 3 county points, 3 contact credits. And they're allowing that now in the Georgia QSO Party, which they didn't do before. So how does scoring work? Operators outside of Georgia score by contacting Georgia stations, and they earn multipliers with each unique county. So everybody else in the United States and DX wants Georgia, and they get multipliers for the counties. We'll get into multipliers in a little bit. Who knows how many counties are in Georgia? 159. I heard it several places. That's right. So that's what they're trying to work. Anybody who works 159, I'm going to buy them lunch at Slopes for a month. If they work 159. Okay, and so again, the scoring, operators outside of Georgia only earn points for contacts with Georgia stations. So when you're on the air, they're looking for you. So when you get on there and call CQ, they're going to call you. They're going to come back to you. Now, what about operators inside Georgia? Well, we score by contacting Georgia stations and stations outside of Georgia. So it's wide open for us. What does that mean? The Georgia stations are looking for you too, because they get points for working for you. So everybody's looking for you. How does the scoring work? A CW contact is worth 2 points. A phone contact is worth 1 point. And DX counts for a QSO point, but no multipliers. So let's talk about multipliers. Multipliers, we're going to show how the multiplier effect works, but there are 128 possible multipliers. There's 51 states and 13 Canadian provinces.
That's multipliers for in-state operators.
For in-state operators, 159 for out-of-state on the counties, right?
Yes.
And
Actually, there's 300.
yeah, 318. Okay, but for Georgia stations, we want to work 51 states, 13 provinces. That's 64. You double that to 128 because you get a multiplier if you work them on sideband, and you get another one if you work them on CW, as it says there. So DX will count for a point, but not a multiplier. You can work stations once per band per mode. So you can work the same guy on 20 meters sideband in CW and the same guy on 40 meters sideband in CW, but you only get 2 mults for working that one state sideband in CW. And then we talked earlier, rover stations may be worked once per county per mode per band for QSO points. So when Mike's out driving across Georgia, every time he hops to a new county, you can work him for a new contact.
So how do we know when Mike's, I'm hiding in the audience. How do we know when Mike's in a new county?
Tell us, Mike.
We spot ourselves.
And we announced that, what new county that we're in, so we get a new rush of folks contacting us that contacted us just 5 minutes before or 10 minutes before.
Right.
And we spot ourselves on a DX cluster,
And
and other stations that work us also spot us for those instances when we're in the middle of nowhere, Georgia, and have no viable cell service to spot ourselves.
And we'll have a slide on
On
spotting
spotting.
and how that's done. But, right, and another thing is if people aren't looking at clusters, Mike will sign N4N stroke, and they'll have their county, FULT for Fulton. When they get into Cobb, they'll start sounding COBB. So sometimes you can use your ears in a contest instead of a computer. So how does scoring work? Okay, say you contact N1ABC in Connecticut on sideband. 1 QSO point, because it's sideband. One multiplier, because he's your first contact, your first Connecticut. So you're getting a multiplier for Connecticut. So what does that mean? You got 1 point times 1 mult. You now have 1 point in the contest. Then you work N2 DEF in New York, but he's CW. You get 2 QSO points and a new mult because New York's a new state. So now you've got 2 contacts, but 3 QSO points times your 2 multipliers, 6 points. So you can see how it's not a linear chart when you're scoring with these mults. Next, you work a fellow in Pennsylvania, sideband, 1 QSO point, 1 mult. So now you've got 3 contacts, total of 4 QSO points, 3 mults, 12 points. So you can see how things start ramping up. So if you've made 3 contacts, you've got 12 points. So what if you did 8 times as many? You made 24 contacts, split half and half. That's 36 QSO points because you get 2 times for CW. And let's say half of those were new states. So now you've got 36 QSO points, you're up to 432. So it just keeps ramping up. Say you're having so much fun, you spend 3 or 4 more hours. You've got 240 contacts, split 120 and 120, 36 states or provinces in Canada. Now you've got 12,000 points. And one of the fun parts about it is you start operating and getting used to running a little bit. It's enjoyable to watch your score. Maybe you're not paying attention all the time, but you look over and go, wow, all of a sudden I'm at 10 or 20,000, but I didn't make as many as contacts. I didn't think my score would be that high. And how do you do that magic math I was throwing at you? You use computer logging. And I presume most everybody uses a computer logger on their system. What you want is a contest logger. There's 2 main contest loggers out there. We'll talk about that in a minute, but what contest logging does is it'll track your multipliers, calculate your score. It has what is called dupe checking. So if I worked Ian on 10 meters that morning and later on that afternoon, I'm tired and bleary, I hear him again, I'll type his call in and the computer will tell me it's a dupe or flash something up on the screen. So I don't want to bother Ian by calling him again. He's running and I don't want to slow him down by duplicating because he doesn't get credit for a second contact on the same band and mode. So that's one of the nice things. Also, the logging programs, if I worked Ian on 10 meters in Fulton County, hear him later on 20, and I type his call in, it'll fill out all his information from our previous contact. It'll say he's in Fulton County, saves you keystrokes. If you're really into this, it helps your speed rate, but also your accuracy as well, presuming he's not a rover and is still in Fulton County, but he'll say Fulton County when you work. And also the program, as it's filling in all that information for you, maybe you've hopped around bands, and if you don't have computer logging that switches bands, if you interface your logger with your radio, it'll track what band you're on. And, back in the early days when the software wasn't that sophisticated and you didn't change, you could be running on 10 meters, switch to 20 and forget to change the program on the computer, and you got a mess because you're logging contacts on the wrong band. So something to look at, computer logging. The 2 main packages, I think probably most people use are N3FJP and N1MM. They're both very good programs with different features. N3FJP, you can buy the Georgia QSO Party for $8.99, and they have a full suite of all the contests and their logger for $49.99. And I might suggest if you're new to try that one out first, because it's kind of a little more basic than N1MM. And that being said, it doesn't do as much as N1MM. But if you do the $8.99, you could buy the full suite later and he'll give you the credit with the $8.99. The N1MM is free. I think we have pictures of both of those here. This is N3FJP.
John,
I'm
can
sorry.
I jump in for half a second?
Yeah.
If you're interested in using N1MM Logger Plus and are curious about using it, I did a presentation last year that should be on our YouTube channel that was specific to using N1MM Logger Plus and setting it up for the Georgia QSO Party. Steve Mays, is that out there on the YouTube archive?
I have no idea at the moment.
But you can Google
So you
it.
can go check our YouTube channel and see if that presentation's out there if you have questions or you want to use N1MM.
Okay, and what this does is it keeps a running track of your last 10 or so contacts. In this area is where the call and single reports will appear. This is the call sign groups of stations or states you've already worked, so it keeps track of your mults. This guy has 50 multipliers and 446 contacts. This is N1MM. It's more customizable. You can do a lot more. I think you have waterfalls and macros, which the other one has as well. So both good. And one thing to point out, as Ian was saying, I remember he gave that great presentation. It probably still is out there. But when you go to the Georgia QSO Party website, there's a 2-page document out there, a beginner's guide to N1MM Logger Plus for the GQP on the Georgia QSO Party webpage. So you could look at that. It probably doesn't give you the full bells and whistles, but probably gives you enough to get started in the GQP and is worth a look. So how do you work the Georgia QSO Party? Well, there's 2 ways. One is you can get on and call CQ, and you'd be surprised. You get on there, and when the clock starts at 2 o'clock in the afternoon Saturday, just go CQ Georgia QSO Party. This is NF4GA, or DE if you're on CW. And people will come back with a call. This is N8 to ABC Ohio. You're 5-9 Ohio, and you go, you're 5-9 Fulton. And it's pretty basic. And I've been doing this for a lot of years, and I'm still the first 10, 15 minutes I'm nervous about getting there and calling CQ. I don't know why, but once you get going, people come back to you and it's fun. So you can call CQ if you want, or search and pounce. When the bands are hopping and you're accustomed to running CQ and calling, you can really rack up some points quick. But when the bands are full, you can search and pounce. And what that is just tuning the dial, listening for other people call CQ. And you can get a pretty strong rate. Just go and search and pounce. Sometimes just as good as CQing. You'd be surprised. And what you're doing is looking for others calling CQ. So what you might want to do is switch back and forth. If you're new, maybe you want to search and pounce first so you control the pace a little better. Because when you call CQ, even if you're 100 watts in a wire in a modest station, you could have 10 or 15 people calling you just like that. And, you're trying to fill in that new logger you just installed. So, maybe control it and spin around and have fun and work them at your own pace. Remember, a lot of people that you work, they want to move you on and move on to the next and get it going and get their score up. But sometimes you run into people that want to know, oh, you're in Cobb County, how's the big chicken doing or something. And that's fine if you want. They'll get the message if you move on and just say 7-3. Or sometimes it's fun to shoot the breeze for a few minutes. One thing I've noticed is I got a lot of friends. I grew up in Connecticut that are hams, and I work them in the contest, and we'll spend 2 or 3 minutes saying hi. Or sometimes your station just sounds great, tell me what's your audio, you got a great mic, what do you got? You know, and then they'll be glad to share that because everybody loves a compliment and wants to tell you why they sound so good. So, awards. Scores are more important to some than others, but we like to see everybody keep score and submit their scores to the GQP and the NFARL challenge so we can have fun with that. The GQP likes it because they want their contest to have as many participants every year. They promote it. They want people, they want the activity. And North Fulton is there to help them get it. And so you'll send your scores to the GQP and to us here at North Fulton. And what the GQP requires is a Cabrillo file. And what the Cabrillo file is it's generated by your logging software, includes the specifics of what you just did, your name and data, whether you're low power mixed or you did everything in CW or sideband. It'll show your score and all your contacts. It's easy to do with your computer logging. It's just creating a file, save it to your hard drive, and go log on to the GQP site and send it in. They want it in about 2 weeks. In reality, you could get it to them the next day or that night even. The Georgia QSO Party awards plaques in various categories that you saw earlier, low power CW and what have you. NFARL, we sponsor a gavel for the highest club score outside the state of Georgia. And a lot of our members sponsor the award plaques for the contest. There's dozens of them that are given out. That's a plaque, and there's the gavel that we won last year as the highest club in Georgia. So again, when you submit to the Georgia QSO Party, I think, well, you can earn a GQP certificate from them, but I think you have to request it. They're not real big on issuing those, and that's fine. Your points also will be counted towards the NFARL club total, which we like to see how much we can score. That's one of their, that was from 2017. I haven't seen one since then, but I think on the website you might be able to find where you could request one. Again, it's 2 weeks afterwards, Cabrillo file, and then when you fill out your Cabrillo files on your logging software, it asks you for a club name, put in NFARL as your club. And that's to remind you to put in NFARL as your club. For the challenge, that's just our internal friendly event. And we provide a spreadsheet, which is on the next slide, I think, but there's categories. We have power, mode, band. We have counties, who works the most counties, or who does the best in their respective county. Rookies, if you've never participated before, we have a rookie category, and rovers, and also portable, which I didn't have here. And you can earn the coveted challenge certificate. And there's also the work to all NFARL, which we'll talk about in a second. Here's the spreadsheet. It's downloadable from the website, probably take you 5 minutes because you get the data off your logging software. We just ask you all the information I just talked about, how many contacts you made on certain bands. This way we can parse the data and see who did well, maybe who had the best 40-meter score, who had the best sideband score, or what have you. This is Brian Pitts. He was first place in DeKalb County last year, one of our club members, earned that certificate. And the work all NFARL, if you are not aware, we have 10 special event call signs that club members operate. N4N through N4L, K4N through K4L, spelling out NFARL. And if you would probably like to work some of these, you can get the special QSL card, but also if you work any 5 of these 10 in any combination, Ks or Ns, sideband or CW, you can get the worked all NFARL certificate. And what this does, why we do this is it helps generate interest in the GQP. I think the contest people like us doing this because that generates a lot of activity. The fact that we had over 40 people on the challenge team last year brings a lot of juice to the contest. And one-by-one calls are nice exposure for the club. And the clean sweep is if you work all 10, and that was Jeff Otterson. And that's our QSL card. If you just work one of them, you can request that QSL card. So operating tips, call CQ. If you're not a 4-call in Georgia, ID with your county, like Westwood's Lamboli back there, CQ, GQP, Whiskey 3, Whiskey Lima, stroke Fulton, if he's on CW, or Whiskey 3, Whiskey Lima, Fulton County. Just so people know who you are, because you hear the 3, you're thinking Pennsylvania maybe. Switch bands and mode when conditions or activity warrant. Know your 4-character county abbreviation. Well, that's easy, but review the county list as well, because you're going to be working people in counties you've never heard of, and especially on CW. If I say McIntosh County on sideband, you know it, but it may be a little trickier on CW, so brush up on that. You do not have to have a superstation to succeed and have fun. The solar cycle is in your favor. Simple dipolar end-foot wire with 100 watts, you'll have a blast. So even if you're not a contester, have a party. Spotting networks, I'm almost done here. We'll talk about, you probably know some of these, and there's probably half a dozen more. Self-spotting is allowed in a contest. As Mike was saying, when they change counties, this is a DX Watch, I believe, but this is K4L, which was Chuck Catledge a few years back, and people are spotting him. And this is on 20, then he went to 40, but he's also spotting himself. See that AE4CW, and that's just to generate juice. He's saying Cobb County, so people in Michigan say, oh, I need Cobb County. There he is. I'm going to go grab it. A lot of contests do not allow this, but it is allowed in the Georgia QSO Party. So, Scout motto, be prepared. Check your antennas and radio and your vehicle beforehand. Logging in computer, and allocate your time, be flexible, be comfortable, have confidence in your setup. GeorgiaQSOParty.com for the official site. You might want to go there, review the rules, the county list, and the log submission directions. Ham radio is amazing. Get on the air and enjoy it. You know, don't say I'm not a contester, or don't say I don't, it's not for me. I think why did you buy this radio? You want people to contact you. You ever spin the dial around, you hear everybody calling one guy, but they're not calling you. It's a great feeling, this contest, when people come and they're after you, and you have a lot of fun with it. So I'm open for questions. There's a sign-up sheet there. I'd like to see some more participation from those here who might want to give it a try. If you're new, don't have a station yet, maybe we can get you set up beforehand. We got guys who will help you string antennas. We got a couple loaner radios, so give us a call.
So if anybody on Zoom has questions, they can just type them into the chat, and Dave will help us out by getting those questions up so that we can hear them.
There's one comment on here just for the group. There says there's a correction. Ben put a correction in here that the N3FJP full package is $59.99.
Okay, well, that's inflation. Here we go.
And then there's a question here. What were the self-spotting resources?
Self-spotting resources? Well, that's whatever DX cluster it may be that you're using for the contest. I use DX Watch and VE7CC, but Mike, he probably does a lot more of that than I do. Let's hear from Mike.
Particularly in N1MM, you can self-spot from the logging program itself, because the logging program will connect to a DX cluster and send that out on its own. I'm not sure if N3FJP does the same, but if it doesn't, you can have another window open in your browser to your favorite cluster or DX Summit or wherever, and do self-spotting that way. Put in the call sign of the station that you're using, if it's not your own, and the county that you're in, and GQP, and the frequency and the band, and they'll come to your doorstep. When you're first spotted like that, particularly if you're roving, you're going to be working 4 or more a minute, just as fast as you can go. If you do the math, we had over 2,000 QSOs last year in 20 hours. So that's 100 an hour.
Thank you, Mike.
Then from the Zoom, Ben also pointed out that when you're submitting your Kerbillo log, the club name should be spelled out. Don't put NF, don't abbreviate North Fulton Amateur Radio League. Spell it out.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, we'll work on that because Jeff has worked with us that before, and it's,
Yeah, currently it's North Fulton ARL.
Right.
Is what it is in the system. So be sure you let everybody know whatever Jeff decides he's going
Right.
to do this week.
well, it's not Jeff's fault per se. It's, he's going by the list. That's the drop down on, is it 3830 maybe, and the ARL has. And we're not accustomed to saying North Fulton ARL. So we have to get our convention uniform, and it'll be in all the emails. So please, and those of you out there on Zoom, you can send an email to me at N4TOL at ARL.net or at NFARL.org if you want to be part of the team, just to have fun. So we welcome it.
So should we start a campaign that goes through ARRL to get everybody in the United States to say NARFL instead of North Fulton ARL, or
Well,
what should we
let's
do?
talk about that at the exec meeting. I mean, it's up to us as what we want to be called, but there was a previous member who pioneered that with good intentions, but we have to decide what we want it to be.
Very good.
And if that's it, thank you very much for your time and patience.
Okay, well, thank you, John. So Steve's going to go back to the homepage on the website, and we're going to take a look at page 1 of the e-news.
Steve, a moment.
There we go. What's this thing?
It's our gavel base.
What's that?
That's our gavel base.
Gavel tray. Okay. So we got 2 people who answered that question correctly. Did anybody read this article? Oh, we're going to have a little contest. So we got 2 people that are in the contest right now. How many holes are in this thing? Don't count them. 12. How many gavels do we have?
Probably more than 12. 12.
I hear 3 different numbers. I think there's only one. I think it's, yeah. So 11? 11. Okay, who said 11? Steve? Yes. Wow. All right, one more question. How much does that thing weigh? Closest answer.
A metric ton.
3.5 pounds? I have no idea what it weighs, so we're going to discount that one. How much does a hen weigh? About 2 pounds. All right, Steve, because you answered the question correctly, you receive a $25 Lowe's gift card. Congratulations. And if anybody wants to take a look at that, it's right there on the front row, along with a 2017 plaque that John showed a picture of. That's also there. So take a look at them. Make sure you put your thumbprints on them for posterity, and we'll put them back in the box.